Meet the newest $13 billion aircraft carrier. Why does the U.S. invest so heavily in aircraft carriers? What are the benefits of having such a strong presence on the high seas? And how would the USS Gerald Ford Supercarrier's deployment affect the global balance of power? Join us as we explore the fascinating world of aircraft carriers and examine the newest addition to the U.S. Navy's fleet. What new technologies and capabilities does this supercarrier bring to the table? And how do other nations plan to keep up with America's impressive naval power? All this and more coming up in this exciting video, so stay tuned to the video till the end. Almost 2 decades after the famous ceremonial first cut of steel and a decade after the christening in Newport News, the USS Gerald R. Ford made its first formal deployment. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the newest supercarrier in the U.S. Navy, left its home port in Virginia to go on its second operational mission. This is also the first full-length trip for the ship, which has had a lot of technical problems and other problems since it was delivered 4 years ago. Even though everyone is sure that the Ford, which is a technological marvel that is much more advanced in many ways than all other famous and successful vessels that came before it, will do a great job, each departure of the chosen service member seems to come with new risks, and the Ford carries the hopes of the region for a super successful deployment and a quick and safe return. These ships are both floating cities and airports that can start almost 270 air missions every day. They house thousands of people and have power infrastructure, living spaces, sanitation, and food service. It takes a long time and a lot of skill to build something like this. The Ford is amazing in every way. It is 1,106 feet long, making it the largest warship ever made and the largest aircraft carrier in service. As far as longevity, it will be 50 years before the Ford needs to be refueled, and it is expected to last 90 years. For the cost, the price of the Ford is $13.3 billion. Each of the class's future ships is expected to cost about $12 billion. The design of the Ford is very different from the Nimitz-class ships. Its island is about 140 feet farther back, so there is more room for planes to line up and take off. But what's under the hood is the most important change. The Ford design has successfully replaced the steam-powered systems that the Nimitz-class ships used with electromagnetic launch systems. This lets it launch more planes in less time. Its radar devices and weapons use the latest technology. It is known that the nuclear plant can make more power than any other carrier before it. The flying deck of the Ford is also bigger than that of its predecessor, so it only needs a smaller crew. Hey you, soldier! We need 1 second from you. Please drop your bum on the subscribe button and be part of our exclusive military family. A story from Navy Times says that, at least at first, the Ford will do normal operations in the waters around Europe. The carrier did go on a short operational deployment into the Atlantic last year, which included exercises with European allies and partners. However, the Navy said that this was more of a stress test of the ship's general power since it has had so many problems. Ford will replace the Nimitz-class carrier USS George H.W. Bush on this first real operational mission. That carrier arrived in Norfolk over the weekend after an 8-month journey across Europe and the Middle East. USNI News says that Bush's deployment was extended after deadly attacks on U.S. troops in Syria in March. The Ford got all of her licenses and met all the requirements to go into action. The Navy said that the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, or GRF-CSG, had finished its Composite Training Unit exercise, also known as Comp-2X, on April 3rd with flying colors. Comp-2Xs are the most important part of a carrier strike group's training before their next deployment. They test their defensive skills under stress. The Navy said at the time that the GRF-CSG had the following parts: the staffs of Carrier Strike Group 12, Carrier Air Wing 8, and Destroyer Squadron 2. Participating units include Ford-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford, also CVN-78, Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser USS Normandy, or CG-60, and Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers USS Ramage, DDG-61, USS McFall, also DDG-74, and USS Thomas Hudner, also known as DDG BG-116. CVW-8 squadrons include the Black Lions of Strike Fighter Squadron 213, the Tomcatters of VFA-31, the Raging Bulls of VFA-37, and the Golden Warriors of VFA-87, Electronic Attack Squadron 142, the Bear Aces of Airborne Command and Control Squadron 124, the Rawhides of Fleet Logistics Squadron VRC-40, the Spartans of Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 70, and the Tridents of Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 9. Squadrons with FA-18 EF Super Hornet fighter jets, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, E-2 HAWKEYE airborne early warning and control planes, and SEAHAWK helicopters are among those on this list. It's not clear right away if the mention of VRC-40 is a mistake, since that unit was supposed to be renamed Fleet Logistics Multi-Mission Squadron 40 as part of its transition from the C-2 Greyhound carrier onboard delivery aircraft to its replacement, the CMV-22B OSPREY TILT-ROTOR. Today, Navy Times said that the destroyers Ramage, McFall, and Thomas Hudner had already left or were getting ready to leave port as part of this mission. However, the cruiser Normandy was not mentioned. Usually, one or more attack subs go with carrier strike groups when they go on missions. It's still not clear what Ford's launch may mean at this point. The ship is headed for Europe, which is still going through its worst security crisis in years because of Russia's war in Ukraine. Recently, there's been a noticeable rise in flights between the U.S. and different groups in the Middle East. The commander of Carrier Strike Group 12, Navy Rear Admiral Greg Huffman, said in a statement, "Our presence at sea during the deployment will reassure our allies and partners that sea lanes will remain open, and our joint operations will show our commitment to interoperability and maritime stability." At the same time, it is a big step forward for the ship, which has fought for years to become fully operational, even though it was officially given to the Navy in 2019. Ford's advanced electromagnetic airplane catapults, electronically tuning arresting gear, weapon elevators, radars, and other systems have given the company a lot of trouble over the years. The most important problems have been with the catapults and the gear for stopping the ship. This is because the Navy has long promoted these systems as providing Ford and subsequent ships in this class with significantly higher sortie generation rates than their Nimitz-class predecessors. According to USNI News, in April, Captain Metcalf said that this deployment was meant to give the service a chance to get hard operational data that would show whether or not these predictions are true. And of course, it's the team that will make all the difference at sea when it comes to running operations and doing the hard work that's needed to protect national security. The region has no illusions about the dangers that exist around the world, such as China's threats against Taiwan and global ambitions, Russia's invasion of Ukraine and territorial ambitions, North Korea's continued nuclear development and erratic behavior, and the rogue regimes and terrorist groups that continue to operate in far-off lands. We have reached the end of the video, but no worries. If you want to stay up to date on the latest war developments, make sure you press that bell icon.